Our organisation is undertaking workforce planning because in New South Wales the workforce planning is compulsory. The Division of Local Government have made it compulsory for all councils. There's 152 of them to do their workforce plans, and what we're finding is some are doing it well, some are doing it not so well, and others want to upgrade their skills. So we saw this as an opportunity to try to help give them a workforce plan, but also cover the skilling element as well. And also introduce them to e-learning, where in a lot of cases they're not so used to that kind of approach. They chose themselves in a way. In councils in New South Wales, a lot of the workforce planners are in the HR area, but that's not necessarily the case. They may have somebody who's called a talent manager or something like that may be tasked with being the workforce planner. So when we put the invitation out for people to be involved in this project, and we got people coming back to us within 2 days, we had our 30 people signed up within 2 days of us sending out the information. So there's obviously people wanting to do it, but we were amazed at the degree or the different types of people that are in there. There's an organisational development manager, there's quite a few HR managers, there's some HR officers who are tasked with workforce planning. So it was quite a variety of different people that wanted to do it, and they chose themselves, not necessarily us choosing them. Open to everyone, yes. We knew that we would capture the workforce planning because they're the ones that have got to do it and it's compulsory, so they would be the ones that want to do it. But I think we got the right group.
In relation to how e-learning meets responsiveness and dealing with business needs, in this project we're sort of talking about e-learning at 2 levels, particularly because we do have people spread around the whole state. And in the past we had done a very heavy sort of face-to-face workshop model, and so we were only really getting to a very limited number of people and upskilling them that way. When we first advertised the project, we basically had enough people to fill the project within a day or two. We had such a huge level of interest because it's really about the access, if you like. So what we're doing here is exposing those key people who are in HR leadership roles to their own e-learning experience, if you like, by doing the workforce plan and giving them an opportunity to test out what sort of things they think will and won't work. And the councils are at very sort of varied levels in terms of what they use around e-learning and tools at the moment. And so what we're seeing in the way that they're getting into the gap identification and their workforce development strategy design is much more of an awareness about how e-learning could fit in there or how it could assist, whereas it sort of was not represented in their workforce plans really much at all before. At the moment we're at the future workforce profile stage, and this is where we have used some online and e-learning tools to do that. So the next webinar and step that we'll be doing will be much more of the gap design, and that's where we think that the e-learning components will sort of feature much more heavily. It's just that perhaps they hadn't been aware of it or thought about it in the past, and now they know much more about what's available and they're incorporating it in sort of more of a natural way. For the workforce planning process, we're using a 6-step model. So the first step is to have a look at the context and environment. In the second step, we're profiling the current workforce and we're looking at their demographics, their skills and competencies and any issues and challenges. The third step is where we have a look at the future workforce profile, critical job roles, do demand and supply forecasting, and again look at skills and competencies and any issues. The next step is the gap analysis, so identifying the priority areas for action. The 5th step is the workforce development strategy design that matches with those gaps and issues, and then the final step is review and implementation of the plan itself. With our learners, we have around 30 human resource and organisational development managers spread across New South Wales, and they're all working in local government or working in shires. And what we've structured in terms of the project is online meetings, and we're using GoToWebinar. And in between we're using the Moodle site, so we've got a whole range of tools and resources that are sitting on the Moodle site. And then when it comes to communication with people in between the online sessions, we're also using LinkedIn. We've got a workforce planning tools group, and email, and also phone and Skype. So where they might need some one-on-one help, we're connecting with them in the way that they prefer. So the project in terms of evidence is really practically based, and so the learners are building their own workforce plans, And some of them do have an existing workforce plan, but what they're doing is reviewing it and refining it. And what we found is that a lot of them have very generic workforce development strategies. They're not really targeted around critical job roles, or they're not very sort of well designed, that they're just very broad. And so the learners are producing workforce plans. We're also collecting and recording information through the online sessions about their communication, their use of their tools to feed into that evidence-based approach for their workforce plan is part of the evidence, and so is their interaction plus their research that they're doing on topics in between the sessions. We're looking at a range of different online and e-learning tools. So part of the sort of tools is about doing the workforce plan themselves. We've also used an online self-assessment so that we can get a benchmark of the skills that people have and haven't got, and then we're designing the online sessions, if you like, to fit in particular the common development gaps. And with their strengths, we're using e-portfolios and an e-assessment methodology and approach, and again mostly using Moodle to collect that evidence, and working with TAFE New South Wales and TAFE Wide Bay Institute to do validation of their evidence. In terms of the sustainability of the e-learning strategy, a number of the participants have been exposed to e-learning on one level, I guess, in the past, or perhaps they've participated in webinars. Where we're taking to them though in the project is to look at e-learning strategies for their workforce development needs that they're identifying as part of their workforce plan, and they perhaps haven't done that really. They've had more like a personal experience of e-learning, and so what we're doing is getting them exposed to all sorts of different tools that they could be using. A lot of them are regionally in rural sort of locations, so they're looking for more efficient ways to deliver a lot of their workforce development needs and gaps. Whether that's sort of a formal program or not, and some of them have their own e-learning systems too. So we have, I guess, what we're calling an e-learning or an e-tools coach who's involved in the project, and in each session that we've got online, we're looking at all sorts of different things. So, you know, whether that's QR codes, for example, or them implementing virtual worlds or their own Moodle systems and their own e-portfolio and evidence collection approach as well. So we're more at that exploration stage at the moment and just letting people know about what's available, and they're testing and trialling it out on themselves and then seeing how relevant it is for their organisation. In relation to the units of competency that we've selected, we've chosen 2 or 3 units, one that's very workforce planning focused and one that's more workforce development focused. A lot of our participants weren't familiar with those units of competency to start with, and so exposing them to that self-assessment, which actually went beyond those units of competency, has given them a good sort of basis and introduction. With the evidence that it's actually working, it's really their level of engagement and how far they've progressed with their workforce plan. So in this project, we've taken very much a work-based project approach where everyone is working through the 6-step model and they're all either reviewing or developing their own workforce plan from scratch. So that evidence is essentially more of a back mapping process that we're doing to the units of competency. But from a facilitation perspective and our e-coach and the registered training organisation partner, we've co-designed what it is that we're doing in the online sessions to cover off on the critical aspects of evidence, and people are sending through their workforce plans for review and feedback. We've got people updating us and presenting where they're up to at each of the online sessions as well. In New South Wales, it is mandatory for each council to have a workforce plan, but not everyone had got around to it, and I guess some people might sort of see it as a burden really rather than a development opportunity. But you can just see from their level of engagement and the way that they're progressing and the actual workforce plan that they're producing really.